If your joy feels dead right now, watch this until the end, because what you're about to discover might just be the proof you've been waiting for. We've all been there. That season where everything felt gray, where smiling felt like a lie, where even worship felt empty. But here's what most people don't realize. God doesn't just bring joy back slowly and quietly. He restores it in ways you can see, ways you can feel, ways that prove to you and everyone around you that He's still working. Today, we're uncovering 7 unmistakable signs that reveal God is actively restoring your joy. And I'm not talking about forced positivity or toxic happiness. I'm talking about the real restoration. The kind that changes how you live, how you love, and how you see your future. Some of these signs will shock you. Some might make you cry. But the last one might reveal something you've never realized about what true joy actually means. Stay until the end. Do you remember the last time you felt happy and immediately thought, "Is this allowed?" That's not conviction. That's a wound. When you've been through hard seasons, when you've suffered loss, betrayal, or disappointment, joy becomes something you have to negotiate with God about. You smile, then you feel guilty. You laugh, then you think about people who are still hurting. You get good news, and your first instinct is to apologize to the universe for being blessed. But here's what happens when God truly restores your joy. That guilt dies. Not the sensitivity to others' pain. Not your compassion. But the lie that says you don't deserve to be happy. The lie that says other people's suffering means you should carry theirs on your shoulders. The lie that says joy is selfish. Listen to what Paul wrote in Philippians 4 verse 4, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say, rejoice." He didn't say, "Rejoice if everyone else is doing okay first." He didn't say, "Rejoice quietly so no one notices." He said rejoice, fully, unapologetically, repeatedly. Think about Nehemiah. After years of captivity and seeing his people broken, he stood before the ruins of Jerusalem. But when he helped rebuild the walls, something shifted. Nehemiah 8 verse 10 says, "The joy of the Lord is your strength." And the people wept when they heard it. They weren't crying because they were sad. They were crying because they remembered what it felt like to be allowed to be happy again. That's the sign you're looking for. That moment when you stop editing your joy for other people's comfort. When God restores your joy, you'll notice something strange at first. You feel guilty feeling less guilty. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You think, "I shouldn't smile this big. What if God's testing me? What if this happiness is temporary?" And then slowly, almost imperceptibly, you realize that joy doesn't have an expiration date when it comes from God. Real restoration means you can be happy and empathetic. You can celebrate and carry compassion. You can laugh and acknowledge pain exists. These aren't contradictions. They're the fullness of a healed heart. The first sign that God is restoring your joy is when you stop negotiating permission to feel it. You laugh without immediately thinking of someone's suffering. You receive a blessing without the reflexive guilt. You smile at a stranger and you don't apologize for it internally. You're happy, and you let yourself be happy. This is when you know something fundamental has shifted. Not just your circumstances, your identity. You're not the person still waiting to be punished. You're not the one who has to earn the right to be happy. You're someone God is actively restoring. And that changes everything. But here's what most believers don't realize. This first sign is just the beginning. Because the moment you stop apologizing for your joy, something else starts happening, and it's far more powerful than you expect. There's a difference between smiling and laughing. A smile is polite. A smile can be borrowed. But laughter Laughter is involuntary. It comes from somewhere deep, from a place that's been healed enough to find genuineness in joy again. When you've been through a hard season, your home becomes quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when people are afraid to disturb the fragile balance of everyone's hurt. Conversations become careful. Dinner tables become solemn. The sound of real laughter almost feels offensive. But when God restores your joy, laughter comes back first to your home. It starts small. Maybe it's something ridiculous your kid says. Maybe it's a memory with a friend that suddenly feels safe to laugh about again. Maybe it's noticing the absurdity of something you've been taking too seriously. And then, almost shocking yourself, you laugh. Real, genuine, can't stop yourself laughter. And when that happens at your dinner table, when it echoes through your home, everyone feels it. Your kids notice. Your spouse notices. Your roommate notices. Because laughter is contagious in a way that smiles can never be. Laughter says, we're safe enough to be this free. Look at what happened in Job's story. Job lost everything: his children, his wealth, his health. His life became a study in suffering. But at the end, after everything was restored, it says, the Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former part. Job 42 verse 12. And you know what that blessing included? A home full of life again. Daughters with names meaning dove and horn of cosmetics, symbols of beauty and joy. His life had laughter again. That's the second sign. When your home stops feeling like a mourning house and starts feeling like a home again. This isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about reaching a place where you can genuinely find joy in the small moments. Where you can laugh at your own mistakes instead of beating yourself up over them. Where your family can gather and actually enjoy each other instead of just tolerating each other through the pain. Real laughter requires three things: safety, healing, and permission. Safety to be vulnerable. Healing enough to feel light. Permission to enjoy life again. When God restores your joy, He gives you all three. You'll notice it starts happening at the most random moments. You're doing dishes and something's funny and you actually laugh out loud, alone in your kitchen. You're with your kids and you're not performing happiness for them. You're actually present with them in their joy. You're with your spouse and there's playfulness again, not just obligation. The sound of genuine laughter in your home is the sound of a heart that's been restored. It says, I'm healed enough to let my guard down. It says, life is worth enjoying again. It says, God is still good, and I can feel it now. But here's what you need to understand. Once laughter returns, something else starts shifting inside you. Because joy isn't just about feeling good, it's about becoming good to others. And that's where the third sign appears, and it's far more convicting than you'd expect. Forgiveness is easy to talk about and nearly impossible to do. We throw around the word like we understand it. Oh, I've forgiven them. But real forgiveness, the kind that doesn't require an apology first, that's not religion. That's resurrection. When you've been hurt, when someone's betrayal or carelessness left a scar, forgiveness becomes a negotiation. You might forgive if they apologize. You might let it go if they acknowledge what they did. You might move forward if they prove they've changed. Forgiveness comes with conditions. But when God restores your joy, forgiveness becomes unconditional. This is the third sign, and it's the one that will confuse you because it doesn't feel like strength, it feels like weakness. But it's not. It's the strongest thing a healed heart can do. Here's what Jesus said in Matthew 18 verses 21 to 22. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times. Jesus answered, "I tell you, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. He wasn't talking about a math problem. He was talking about infinite forgiveness. Forgiveness that doesn't keep score. Think about Stephen. When they were stoning him to death, he didn't wait for his killers to repent. He didn't say, "I'll forgive you when you're ready." He looked at them while they were actively killing him and said, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them." Acts 7 verse 60. That's not human forgiveness. That's a joy so deep and a healing so complete that it can forgive in the moment of betrayal. When your joy is restored by God, you become like that. You'll notice it first with small things. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and instead of anger, you just think, they must be having a rough day. A friend forgets your birthday, and instead of storing it up, you reach out to them. A family member says something hurtful, and instead of planning your comeback, you wonder what pain they're carrying. You forgive without needing them to ask. This confuses people. They expect you to be bitter. They expect you to keep a list. They expect you to use their mistakes against them later. But instead, you've moved on. Not because you forgot, you remember, but because holding on to the hurt stopped making sense to you. Here's why this happens. When God restores your joy, He shows you that your own forgiveness was never something you earned. It was given freely, lavishly, without condition. And when you truly feel that grace in your own life, you can't help but give it away to others. Unforgiveness is a weight. It's heavy. It keeps you tethered to your pain. But forgiveness, real, unconditional forgiveness, it's light. It's freedom. It's the sound of chains breaking. When you start forgiving people who haven't asked for it, who may never acknowledge what they did, who might not even know they hurt you, that's when you know God is healing you deeper than you realized. And that's when something profound happens. The world sees this change. People notice. And that's the fourth sign, the one that will make you realize your restoration isn't just personal anymore. You can't hide joy. Not real joy. You can hide sadness. You can paste on a smile and go to work and no one will know you're falling apart inside. You can perform normalcy. But genuine, restored joy? That radiates. It's visible. It changes your face, your posture, the way you move through the world. This is the fourth sign, when strangers start noticing something different about you. Not your family, not your close friends who know you well, but random people. A cashier at the grocery store, a stranger at the gym, someone you pass on the street. They see something in you and it stops them. It intrigues them. Sometimes they even comment on it. You look happy. What's different about you? You have this light around you. These comments from strangers are profound because they're unfiltered by relationship. They're not being kind or supportive. They're just seeing something real and reflecting it back to you. This is what Jesus meant when He said in Matthew 5 verses 14 to 16, "You are the light of the world. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." He wasn't talking about performing kindness. He was talking about being so restored, so aligned with God's joy, that your very presence becomes a witness. Think about Peter and John after Jesus rose from the dead. The Jewish leaders noticed something about them. Acts 4 verse 13 says, "When they saw the courage of Peter and John and realized that they were unschooled, ordinary men, they were astonished and they took note that these men had been with Jesus." They didn't preach to notice the change. Their presence was the message. When God restores your joy, you become that person. You walk into a room and people feel something shift. Not because you're performing. Not because you're trying to convince them of anything. But because you've been genuinely changed by God's healing. You'll notice this in conversation. Someone will say, "I don't know what it is about you, but talking to you makes me feel better." A coworker will ask what's going on because you seem lighter. Someone at church will pull you aside and ask, "How did you get through what you went through?" Because you're not bitter. You're not broken. You're actually happy. And the beautiful part? You don't have to explain anything. Your life becomes the explanation. Real restoration doesn't need a testimony. It just exists. Your energy changes. Your eyes change. There's a peace about you that people can feel even if they can't explain it. You become someone people want to be around because your presence reminds them that healing is possible. That joy can return. That God is still working. But here's where it gets deeper. As strangers notice your change, you start noticing something about yourself too. You realize you're not looking back anymore. Not the way you used to. You're not checking the wreckage. You're not revisiting the pain. And that's when the fifth sign appears, the moment you realize you finally, truly let the past go. We're obsessed with our past. Not always in a conscious way. But it's like having a wound that you keep checking to see if it's healed. You press on it. You look at it. You wonder if it's infected. And every time you do, you reopen it a little bit more. This is what unforgiven hearts do. They keep checking the past because they're not sure if it's really over. They replay conversations. They imagine what they should have said. They construct narratives about what people meant when they hurt them. They're still, in a sense, living in that season even though it's behind them. But when God restores your joy, something shifts. You stop checking. This is the fifth sign. And it's subtle. You might not even notice it at first. You'll just realize one day that you haven't thought about that old hurt in weeks. That situation that used to follow you into your thoughts like a shadow, it's not there anymore. You're not checking to see if you're okay anymore because you know you are. Paul understood this when he wrote in Philippians 3 verses 13 to 14, "Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal." He wasn't talking about amnesia. He was talking about intentionality. About refusing to let your gaze stay fixed on what's behind you. When your joy is truly restored, your gaze naturally turns forward. Think about Lot's wife. When they fled Sodom, she kept looking back, even as the city burned behind her. And it destroyed her. Not because God wanted to punish her, but because you cannot move forward while you're still looking backward. Your life goes where your eyes go. Real restoration means you've stopped looking. You won't obsess over old conversations anymore. You won't replay the moment someone hurt you. You won't wonder, what if, about situations you can't change. You won't drive past the places that remind you of pain. You won't follow the people who broke your heart. You won't keep their messages or photos or reminders. You're not avoiding these things out of discipline or willpower. You're avoiding them because they don't appeal to you anymore. It's like being hungry for junk food your whole life, and then suddenly your body just doesn't want it. You pass it by naturally. This is what restored joy does. It makes the past genuinely uninteresting to you. And here's the profoundness of this. When you stop checking your past, you're making a statement to God. You're saying, "I trust that what you're doing right now is better than what I experienced then." You're saying, "I'm not afraid anymore." You're saying, "I'm done investigating the wound because I believe it's healed." That's maturity. That's faith. That's the sign of someone God has genuinely restored. Your mind becomes quiet in a way it hasn't been in years. No more loops. No more replaying. No more, if onlys. Just peace. Just forward momentum. Just the feeling of finally being free. But now something even more powerful begins to happen. Your prayers start changing. And when your prayers change, your entire relationship with God transforms in ways you never expected. Prayer becomes different when your joy is restored. Not the mechanics of it. You still close your eyes. You still bow your head. But the nature of it, the energy behind it, transforms completely. Before restoration, prayer often becomes a place where we lay down our complaints. It becomes the room where we tell God what's wrong, what's unfair, what we need Him to fix. Prayer becomes transactional. God, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you. Or it becomes adversarial. God, why haven't you answered me yet? But when your joy is genuinely restored, prayer becomes conversation. Not performance. Not petition. Not complaint. Conversation, the kind you have with someone you actually trust. Someone you actually enjoy being around. Listen to what David wrote in Psalm 42, verse 8. By day the Lord directs His love. At night His song is with me, a prayer to the God of my life. Did you catch that? A song. Not a complaint. Not a demand. A song, which means his prayer came from a place of joy, not desperation. This is the sixth sign. Your prayers start sounding different because you're different. Instead of, God, why is this happening to me? You're praying, God, what are you teaching me through this? Instead of, God, I need you to prove yourself, you're saying, God, thank you for proving yourself to me. Instead of, God, when will you answer? You're saying, God, I see what you're doing. I trust you. Your prayers become less about getting and more about connecting. Less about fixing and more about knowing. Less about demanding and more about receiving. Think about Jesus in the garden before His crucifixion. He could have prayed in complaint, Father, why do I have to go through this? Why me? This is unfair. But instead, Luke 22 verse 42 shows us, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. His prayer was a conversation of surrender, not a complaint of victimhood. When your joy is restored by God, your prayers begin to sound like friendship again. Not employee to boss. Not beggar to king. But friend to friend. The kind of conversation where you can be honest without being bitter. Where you can ask questions without demanding answers. Where you can sit in silence together and that's enough. You'll notice this when you pray. You'll catch yourself laughing with God instead of just talking to God. You'll find yourself thanking Him for things you never noticed before. You'll stop reading off a list of needs and start actually listening for what He wants to say to you. Your quiet times won't feel like obligations anymore. They'll feel like moments you actually look forward to. Like checking your phone to see if your best friend texted, except it's so much deeper. Prayer becomes what it was always meant to be, intimacy. And when your prayers become conversations instead of complaints, something profound happens inside you. You start to feel genuinely alive. Not just okay. Not just surviving. But alive in a way you'd almost forgotten was possible. There's a massive difference between living and surviving. Surviving is what you do when you're in crisis mode. Your nervous system is activated. You're in fight or flight. You're just trying to get through the day. You wake up, you go through the motions, you try not to think about tomorrow, and you collapse at night. Surviving is exhausting. But living is different. Living means your body has settled. Your mind has space. You're not just reacting anymore, you're choosing. You're not just getting through, you're actually experiencing. This is the seventh and final sign. When you cross the line from survival into actual life. And it's not dramatic. No lightning bolt. No voice from heaven. It's just quieter than that. It's you noticing that you're not tired all the time anymore. It's you realizing you want to do things instead of just having to do things. It's you waking up and thinking about what you want instead of what you're afraid of. Jesus said in John 10 verse 10, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life, and to the full." Not just life. Life to the full. Abundant life. The kind where you're not just existing, you're actually living. Think about Lazarus. When Jesus raised him from the dead, everyone focused on the miracle of resurrection. But think about what that felt like for Lazarus. He went from being dead, from decomposing in a tomb for 4 days, to being alive again. Not just breathing, but alive. Able to feel the sun, taste food, feel his sister's embrace. Live. When God restores your joy, you get a taste of what Lazarus felt. Your body starts feeling different. You have energy again. Not the anxious, caffeine-fueled energy of someone in crisis, but genuine vitality. You want to move. You want to try new things. You want to do things instead of just talking about them. Your mind starts working differently too. You're not stuck in loops anymore. You're not replaying the past. You're having new thoughts. Thinking about the future in a way that excites you instead of terrifying you. Your imagination comes back online. Your relationships shift. You're not just enduring time with people, you're actually enjoying them. You're present. You're curious. You're interested in their lives instead of just tolerating their presence. You'll notice you care about your appearance again. Not from vanity, from self-respect. You want to eat better. You want to move your body. You want to take care of yourself because you're starting to realize, I'm worth taking care of. That's what it means to feel alive again. Surviving says, I'll get through this. Living says, I wonder what else is possible. Surviving is about endurance. Living is about expansion. And when you cross this threshold, when you realize you're not just white-knuckling your way through life anymore, but actually living it, something clicks inside you. You start noticing beauty again. Small blessings that you'd been too numb to see. Moments of genuine peace that you'd stopped believing were possible. But here's what happens next. As you feel more alive, you start to notice something else. Little things start making you grateful in a way they never have before. Gratitude that feels less like obligation and more like overflow. And that's when the 8th chapter continues the deeper development of your restoration. Gratitude is the language of joy. Not forced gratitude, the kind where you say, thank you, because you're supposed to. But genuine gratitude. The kind that bubbles up spontaneously because you're seeing clearly again. When you're in a hard season, small blessings become invisible. Someone gives you a compliment and you think, they're just being nice. You get a good meal and you eat it without tasting it. Your friend checks on you and you think, they're obligated. Pain has a way of making you colorblind to everything good. But when God restores your joy, you get your color vision back. And suddenly, everything matters again. This is the 8th chapter, when small things start making you genuinely grateful. Not grateful for the big stuff, that's easy. But grateful for the coffee that tastes good. Grateful for a sunny day. Grateful for a text message from a friend. Grateful that your body works. Grateful that you get another day. Grateful for things so small that before, you would have taken them for granted completely. Psalm 100 verse 4 says, Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. Thanksgiving is the gateway. It's how you enter God's presence. And when you're grateful for small things, you're actually practicing His presence in the everyday moments. Think about Jesus multiplying the loaves and fishes. Before He broke the bread and fed thousands, what did He do? He gave thanks. He looked at 5 loaves and 2 fish and said, "Thank you." Not, "Thank you when I multiply this," but, "Thank you now." That gratitude opened the door to the miracle. Real gratitude doesn't wait for everything to be perfect. It celebrates what's already here. When your joy is restored, you become someone who notices. A restored heart is a grateful heart because it knows how dark things can get. You know what it's like to lose things, so you're grateful for what remains. You know what it's like to feel empty, so you're grateful for every drop of goodness. You'll find yourself thanking God for things that seem silly. Thank you for this warm shower. Thank you for my child's laughter. Thank you for the rain. Thank you that my heart still works. It sounds simple, but it's not. It's the sign of someone who's been healed enough to see again. And here's what's wild. The more grateful you become for small things, the more small things show up to be grateful for. Your brain actually rewires to notice blessings instead of threats. Scientists have proven this. Gratitude literally changes your neural pathways. But more than that, spiritually, gratitude is like opening a door. When you say, "Thank you, God, for a simple sunrise," you're saying, "I see you. I see what you're doing. I trust you." And God doesn't ignore gratitude. He multiplies it. So you start being grateful for bigger and bigger things. Your perspective shifts. Your entire life becomes a gratitude practice. But here's what happens as you become more grateful. You stop being busy all the time. You stop hustling and performing and proving yourself. And that's when you realize you need to rest, truly rest, in a way you never have before. Rest is an act of faith. Not laziness. Not avoidance. But rest, the kind where you actually stop and trust that the world will be okay without you working. This is hard for most of us. We've been taught that our worth comes from our productivity. That rest is something you earn after you've proven yourself. That stopping means failing. That taking care of yourself is selfish. So we hustle. We grind. We fill every moment with tasks and achievements and accomplishments. We say yes to everything. We make ourselves indispensable. And we do it all while our souls are screaming for a break. But when God restores your joy, something shifts. You give yourself permission to rest. This is the 9th chapter. And it sounds simple, but it changes everything. Genesis 2 verses 2 to 3 tells us, "By the 7th day God had finished the work He had been doing, so on the 7th day He rested from all His work. Then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it He rested from all the work of creating that He had done." Do you see that? God blessed rest. He didn't apologize for it. He didn't say, "I'll rest after I finish all my work." He rested on the 7th day, while there was still infinite work to do, because rest itself is holy. When your joy is restored, you finally believe this. You stop saying yes to every invitation. You stop filling every hour with productivity. You stop feeling guilty for taking a nap. You stop checking your phone during dinner. You actually rest, and you do it without the accompanying anxiety that everything will fall apart if you're not working. Think about Mary and Martha. Martha was so busy serving that she missed being with Jesus. But Mary sat at His feet and chose to be present. And Jesus said Mary has chosen what is better, Luke 10 verse 42. Not because serving is bad, but because being is what we actually need. When God restores your joy, you become more like Mary. You're still productive. You still work. But you've stopped letting productivity be your identity. You're not performing rest, like resting is one more thing to accomplish. You actually rest because you finally feel worthy of it. You take a day off and you don't work through it mentally. You take a vacation and you actually vacation, not just physically relocating while your mind stays at the office. You go to bed and you sleep instead of lying awake thinking about tomorrow. You'll find yourself thanking God for things that seem silly. Thank you for this warm shower. Thank you for my child's laughter. Thank you for the rain. Thank you that my heart still works. It sounds simple, but it's not. It's the sign of someone who's been healed enough to see again. And here's what's wild. The more grateful you become for small things, the more small things show up to be grateful for. Your brain actually rewires to notice blessings instead of threats. Scientists have proven this. Gratitude literally changes your neural pathways. But more than that, spiritually, gratitude is like opening a door. When you say, "Thank you, God, for a simple sunrise," you're saying, "I see you. I see what you're doing. I trust you." And God doesn't ignore gratitude. He multiplies it. So you start being grateful for bigger and bigger things. Your perspective shifts. Your entire life becomes a gratitude practice. But here's what happens as you become more grateful. You stop being busy all the time. You stop hustling and performing and proving yourself. And that's when you realize you need to rest, truly rest, in a way you never have before. Rest is an act of faith. Not laziness. Not avoidance. But rest, the kind where you actually stop and trust that the world will be okay without you working. This is hard for most of us. We've been taught that our worth comes from our productivity. That rest is something you earn after you've proven yourself. That stopping means failing. That taking care of yourself is selfish. So we hustle. We grind. We fill every moment with tasks and achievements and accomplishments. We say yes to everything. We make ourselves indispensable. And we do it all while our souls are screaming for a break. But when God restores your joy, something shifts. You give yourself permission to rest. This is the 9th chapter. And it sounds simple, but it changes everything. Genesis 2 verses 2 to 3 tells us, "By the 7th day God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the 7th day he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done." Do you see that? God blessed rest. He didn't apologize for it. He didn't say, "I'll rest after I finish all my work." He rested on the 7th day, while there was still infinite work to do, because rest itself is holy. When your joy is restored, you finally believe this. You stop saying yes to every invitation. You stop filling every hour with productivity. You stop feeling guilty for taking a nap. You stop checking your phone during dinner. You actually rest, and you do it without the accompanying anxiety that everything will fall apart if you're not working. Think about Mary and Martha. Martha was so busy serving that she missed being with Jesus. But Mary sat at his feet and chose to be present. And Jesus said Mary has chosen what is better, Luke 10 verse 42. Not because serving is bad, but because being is what we actually need. When God restores your joy, you become more like Mary. You're still productive. You still work. But you've stopped letting productivity be your identity. You're not performing rest, like resting is one more thing to accomplish. You actually rest because you finally feel worthy of it. You take a day off and you don't work through it mentally. You take a vacation and you actually vacation, not just physically relocating while your mind stays at the office. You go to bed and you sleep instead of lying awake thinking about tomorrow. Your nervous system settles because you've finally believed that you're allowed to stop. Here's what's radical about this. Rest becomes resistance. It becomes a statement against the lie that you have to earn your value. Every time you rest without guilt, you're saying no to the culture that says your worth is measured in output. You're saying yes to a different economy, God's economy, where you're loved because you exist, not because of what you produce. Your friends might not understand. They might call you lazy. They might judge you for taking time off. But that's because they're still believing the same lie you used to believe. That your doing matters more than your being. That productivity is holiness. That rest is weakness. But you know better now. And here's what happens when you truly give yourself permission to rest. You recover. Not just physically, but spiritually. Your creativity comes back. Your patience returns. Your joy deepens. Because joy requires space. It requires permission to exist without earning it. When you stop needing permission to rest, you're making a statement, I'm worthy as I am. Not for what I do, but for who I am. That's healing. That's joy. That's the sign of someone who's been fundamentally restored. But as you rest and recover, as your soul settles into this new rhythm of work and peace, something even more beautiful starts happening. Your dreams, the ones you buried years ago, start whispering to you again. Dreams die slowly. Not all at once. But over time, through disappointment after disappointment, through people telling you it's not realistic, through your own fear calcifying into reason, your dreams fade. They don't disappear, they just become inactive. Like they're sleeping in a part of your heart you don't visit anymore. But when God restores your joy, your dreams wake up. This is the 10th chapter. And it's different from the others because this one requires something from you. This one asks you to believe in possibility again. When you've been through hard seasons, possibility feels dangerous. Hope feels like it sets you up for more disappointment. So you protect yourself by not dreaming. You settle. You convince yourself that small is safer. That giving up on your dreams is wisdom instead of fear. But joy restoration doesn't let you stay there. Proverbs 13 verse 12 says, Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. When you suppress your dreams, your heart gets sick. It becomes numb. It stops reaching. But when your joy is restored, that reaching comes back. Think about Caleb and Joshua. They were part of the original group that entered the Promised Land and saw the grapes of Canaan. But then fear gripped the nation and they wandered in the desert for 40 years. 40 years of watching their dreams deferred. But Caleb never stopped believing. At 85 years old, he said to Joshua, I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then. Joshua 14 verse 11. His dream didn't die. His joy in the dream didn't fade. When God restores your joy, you become like Caleb. You start noticing your desires again. The things you stopped letting yourself want. The goals that seemed too big. The paths you abandoned because the rejection hurt too much. And instead of pushing them away, you start considering them again. Not recklessly, but thoughtfully. With this strange new feeling that maybe, they're possible after all. You'll notice it in small ways first. You'll see someone doing something you used to dream about, and instead of thinking, I could never do that, you'll think, actually, what if? You'll catch yourself daydreaming again. Planning again. Actually imagining a future that excites you instead of one you're just resigned to. Your dreams don't all have to be about career or achievement. Maybe your dream is to build a stronger family. Maybe it's to heal a broken relationship. Maybe it's to travel. Maybe it's to create something. Maybe it's to become a person you respect. These dreams, they come knocking again. And here's the profound part. When your joy is restored enough to dream again, you're not chasing the dream for validation. You're not trying to prove anything. You're pursuing it because it's alive inside you. Because your restored joy has made your heart spacious enough to hold desire again. This doesn't mean everything works out perfectly. But it means you're alive enough to try. You're hopeful enough to believe. There's a strange alchemy that happens in a healed heart. Your greatest wounds become your greatest gifts. You didn't ask for the pain. You didn't sign up to suffer so that you could help others through theirs. But that's exactly what God does. He doesn't waste your suffering. He transforms it into compassion. This is the 11th chapter. When people start coming to you with their pain. When your restored joy makes you a safe place for others' broken hearts. Before restoration, you couldn't do this. You were too busy trying to survive your own devastation. You didn't have capacity. You didn't have wisdom. You didn't have peace to offer. But now you've been through the valley. You know what it looks like. You know how dark it gets. And you came out the other side. That makes you invaluable to people who are still in their valleys. Listen to what Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 1 verses 3-4. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort ourselves receive from God. Paul is saying something radical. God comforts you not just for you, but so you can comfort others. Your healing has a purpose. It's not just personal. It's transferable. Think about the woman caught in adultery in John 8. She was dragged before Jesus and the crowd wanted to stone her. She was terrified, shamed, condemned. But Jesus defended her. He looked at her with such compassion that she was restored. And then what? She became a living testimony to His grace. Her restored life became a sign to everyone around her that Jesus didn't come to condemn, He came to redeem. When your joy is genuinely restored, people feel it. They feel your peace. They feel your non-judgment. They feel your understanding because you actually understand. You've been where they are. You know the weight. You know the loneliness. You know the shame. So they come to you. A friend going through a divorce finds themselves calling you, not because you're perfect, but because you've suffered and survived. A coworker facing depression opens up to you, because they sense you won't minimize their pain. A family member in crisis reaches out to you, because your restored joy gives them hope that recovery is possible. You become a refuge, a safe place, a mirror that says, if you made it through, maybe I can too. And here's the beautiful part. The more you offer your healed heart to others, the more your own healing deepens. Because compassion completes the cycle. You're not just receiving grace anymore, you're giving it. And giving grace is how you fully understand grace. Your home becomes a place where broken people feel safe. Your listening becomes a gift. Your presence becomes a healing. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to have been where they are. This is ministry. Not from a pulpit, but from a healed heart to a wounded one. And it's the most powerful witness you could ever give. People will remember you. Not because you said anything profound, but because you saw them when they felt invisible. You believed in them when they'd stopped believing in themselves. You welcomed them when they felt condemned. That's what a restored heart does. It becomes a refuge. But there's something even deeper happening now. As you comfort others, as you become strong in your restored joy, a final question starts forming in your heart. A question you never thought you'd ask. A question that only healed people can ask. Why did God let me go through all of that? And that's when the 12th chapter appears. The final revelation. The one that completes everything. This is the question that haunts us through pain. God, why? Not in an angry way, necessarily, but in a desperate, confused way. Why would you let this happen to me? Why would you allow someone I trusted to betray me? Why would you take someone I loved? Why would you let me suffer like this? If you're good, if you're powerful, why? We ask it in the dark. We ask it through tears. We ask it in those moments when we're not sure if we even believe in God anymore. And for a long time, we don't get an answer. We just get silence. Or we get platitudes, God has a plan, or this is for your good, or God needed another angel. Words that feel hollow when you're in the abyss. But when your joy is genuinely restored, when you've moved through all the other chapters and you've truly been healed, something shifts. You still don't have all the answers, but you have understanding. This is the 12th and final chapter, when you can look back at your hard season and finally understand why God allowed it. Not from your head, but from your healed heart. Job never got an explanation for why he suffered. God never said, "Well, actually, here's the reason." But at the end of Job's story, after all the suffering, Job says something profound in Job 42 verse 5. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Job is saying, I understand now. Not why this happened, but who God is. And that's enough. When your joy is restored, you reach this same place. You understand that the hard season wasn't punishment. It was purification. The fire wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to burn away everything that wasn't real in you. Everything fake. Everything pretended. Everything you were holding onto that wasn't actually life. You understand that you needed to be broken in order to be rebuilt into something stronger, more compassionate, more real. You can't have genuine joy without knowing genuine sorrow. You can't have authentic hope without experiencing real despair. You can't love others with true compassion unless you've felt the weight of suffering yourself. You understand that God wasn't absent during your hard season. He was refining you. And here's the thing that makes this understanding so powerful. It doesn't erase the pain. You're not suddenly grateful for the suffering. You're not thankful that people hurt you. You're not saying, it was all worth it, in some toxic positivity way. But you're released from the need to understand it perfectly. You trust that God knew something you couldn't see at the time. You trust that even though the pain was real, it wasn't final. You trust that He was working something in you that you couldn't have learned any other way. This is grace. This is faith. This is what a truly restored heart knows. Psalm 30 verse 5 says, Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. The weeping was real. The night was long. But the morning comes. And when it does, you understand. Not all the questions get answered, but the question itself loses its power over you. You've moved from asking, God, why? To understanding, God, thank you, even though I still don't fully understand. You see how the hard season shaped you. How it gave you empathy. How it taught you what really matters. How it brought you closer to God. How it made you real instead of pretending. How it connected you to people you never would have met. How it stripped away everything that wasn't essential. And most importantly, you see that God was always there. Not stopping the pain, but present in it. Working through it. Transforming it into something that resembles His redemptive love. This is the deepest sign of restoration. Not that you're happy again, but that you trust again. Not that everything makes sense, but that you trust the one who sees the whole picture. When you reach this place, when you can thank God even for what you don't understand, you know you're truly healed. If this message spoke to you today, if you recognize yourself in any of these 7 signs and the 12 chapters that develop them, then understand something. God is already restoring your joy. Maybe you're in the first sign. Maybe you're in the 7th. Maybe you're further along than you realize. But here's what I want you to know. You're not alone in this journey. The hard seasons don't last forever. The valleys aren't your permanent address. Your pain has an expiration date, even when it feels eternal. God hasn't abandoned you. He's refining you. He's preparing you. He's transforming you into something more beautiful than you were before. And when this season ends, and it will end, you're going to look back and understand. Not everything, but enough. Enough to trust Him again. Enough to love again. Enough to dream again. Enough to become a refuge for others. Here's what I need you to do. If this message reached your heart, if you felt God speaking to you through these signs, type in the comments, "Lord, I surrender." 3 words. That's all. Let me know you're ready to let God restore your joy. And then, please, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone in their hard season. Someone who's forgotten what joy feels like. Someone who needs to know that restoration is possible. Someone who needs to understand that their pain isn't the end of their story. Because joy isn't meant to stay dead. It's meant to rise. Just like you. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next message. Hit the notification bell so you're reminded that God is always working, always restoring, always calling you toward something better. God bless you. I'll see you in the comments. Amen.